Computer-based training. The qSelector web part. The qSelector displays data from a SharePoint list in a drop-down control. The qSelector remembers the last item selected, even after you leave the page. You can use the selector to keep the context of your work. For example, you can manage multiple projects in one workspace easily by using a qSelector. You can place a selector above a qList form to select a certain item and then feed that item to the qList form because the qSelector is a row provider. 1. Connecting the qSelector with the qList view web part. 2. Connecting the qSelector with the qList form web part. Exercise 1. Connecting the qSelector with the qList view web part. See how the qSelector works with the qList view web part. Open the worked example. The qSelector is linked to the qList view and is used to filter the content of the grid display. Open exercise 1. Open the qSelector web part with Easy Edit. Connect to the garment types list as shown. Now set the qSelector to filter the qList view web part. This ends exercise 1. Exercise 2, Connecting the qSelector with the qList form web part. See how the qSelector works with the qList form web part. Open the worked example. In this example, the qSelector is used to autofill master data into a qList form. Open exercise 2. Connect the qSelector to the customer names list as shown. Connect the selector as a row provider to the form. Once connected, fields can be consumed in the form from the customer names list. Here is the company name. Other fields can be consumed as required. Let's add the main phone number into the business phone field. This ends exercise 2.